Thank you all for taking time to join us in our third part of franchise webinar support on COVID-19 impact and recovery on franchising. Let us start off the session with a few address by our President, Andrew Koh. Andrew, please.
Okay, thank you, Tricia. And thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon for our third in this series. And I think it's the most interesting topic. It's about the post-COVID-19 and the recovery. And as you can see, certain countries are at certain stages of looking beyond COVID now. And how do they come back from COVID? And I think it's interesting for all of us to learn from that and to observe also, because really we don't know how things will be post-COVID. And I think suffice to say, it will be a very long process, and it will be a journey and something that we will have to go through together. A couple of months ago, we had a roundtable discussion with SMS Sim-Ann, and what was on her mind was that it's very important for Singapore and for Singapore companies to be first out of the gates, because it's a question of how does one recover fast. So today, I hope we have a very interesting lineup of speakers, and I think we can look forward to hearing from them and their sharings to see how we can better position our companies in the new environment and how we can better support our franchisees in this new world. FLA is the leading franchise association in Singapore. We have about 100 members, and we also deal directly with all the government agencies and stat boards. So please do participate. If you have any questions or you need further support, do reach out to our secretariat, and we will be very pleased to help you. Okay, with that, let me pass it back to Tricia.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tricia, ED of FLA. Please allow me to run through today's webinar flow. There'll be a 20 minutes sharing by Mr. Albert, CEO of Asia-wide Franchise Consultants, on franchise recruitment outlook and preparation for business development growth post-COVID-19. Thereafter, Albert will be moderating a 20 minutes dialogue discussion with two panelists, Mr. Ernie, Executive Director of CODA, and Mr. Andrew, President and CEO of Tonglok Group. They represent the lifestyle and F&B sectors respectively. In the last 15 minutes, they'll be addressing questions from the attendees, and I'll then end the session with some announcements. Without further ado, let me pass the time over to Albert. Albert, please.
Thank you, Tricia. Okay, I'm going to start my presentation. I only have 20 minutes. Normally, I take more than an hour to do every presentation that I have. Okay, so today's topic is very interesting, like what our President Andrew has said. It's all about preparing for the post-COVID-19. Now, as we all know, this pandemic, nobody knows exactly when you'll go away, but we shouldn't be just sitting around and not prepare, especially when Singapore is such a small country. Right. Let me move my slides. Oh dear, why is it not moving? Okay, so the past few months we have been bombarded with terms like isolation economy, the new normal, working from home, home-based learning, and all these things, right? So, but what is important is what we as franchise companies, okay, take out of this thing, all right? So the thing is, franchising is something that all of us are involved with, okay? We want to use franchising to grow our companies. Now, let me share with you some preambles, all right? franchising, if you really tie it down to the bare bones, is about cloning a successful business.
Please hold on. Albert, your slides are not on.
Oh dear. Is it okay now?
No, we don't see your slides yet.
That's strange.
Need to share screen.
This is what I did. Oops, what happened? Very strange. One more time. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me move to now the preamble. As I said earlier, you know, franchising, if you tie it down to the bare bones, is about cloning of a successful business. All right. So what it means is that, you know, if your business is, you know, in trouble, clearly you don't want to franchise. But, you know, once you have the whole thing in order, okay, we have to move. Why? Because Singapore is so small, as I mentioned earlier, all right? And many of you as franchisors, or maybe even franchisors to be, or even master franchisee, you have actually spent money to buy the franchise, okay? And no thanks to the coronavirus, all of us have stopped opening new stores, and some stores might even be closed for a long period of time. So the revenue has dropped. You know, the supply line and the royalties that we hope to get from franchisees are not coming in, all right? So we must, you know, not sit around and say, let's wait, you know, let's prepare ourselves now when we have the time, all right? So whilst we move forward, what's really important is we must not make this mistake of, because we are in a big hurry, we choose the wrong franchisees, because it will take a lot of effort and headache and heartache, you know, to next time, you know, get rid of, or even so-called dislocate all the franchisees that have been wrongly recruited. Now, no thanks to the virus, a lot of people have been either furloughed, or they have been quarantined, or they're working from home. So they have lots of time to access the internet. Some of them are thinking of new careers. Some of them are even saying that, hey, I've been thinking of becoming a franchisee myself, or I have a business that I want to turn into a franchise. You know, it may be a family business. It may be something that you have been invited to join a friend, you know, to start a business, all right? So, like I said, you don't wait, because once things back to normal at whatever stage, some may be faster like China, some may be slower like Europe, okay? But trust me, when the thing is getting more and more normal, franchisors, because they have really spent money and time to set up their franchise systems, they will look for franchisees. They know that franchising is about having a network of like-minded people, sharing the same brand, sharing resources, and growing together. All right. So you must start to think about engaging and then starting relationship with candidates that might make good franchisees. Okay. So let's face it, there are many, many ways to skin a cat. Okay, like the cliche, many ways to skin a cat. I've named a few here. One is organically, meaning you, with your own resources, you open by yourself slowly, or you go into a joint venture, or you go into a management contract, or best of all, you go into franchising, right? Which is what this is all about, you know, and the distant cousin licensing, okay? And then of course, what 7-Eleven has done is the build, operate, and transfer module. So there are several ways there's not just one way to grow your business, but today we'll focus more on franchising. And then if you want to know more about the other modules, we can discuss offline, okay? Now, as we grow, franchising or no franchising, we must know that this world is very uncertain, all right? There'll be another crisis, maybe it's oil, maybe it's water, maybe it's war, you know, and then drought, you know, famine, anything can happen. And then leaders in different countries may go wild, and then there'll be, you know, a coup d'etat and things like that, okay? So there are a lot of uncertainties, which I will put it all under this acronym called PEST, which is the political uncertainty, the economic uncertainty, the social uncertainty, and the technical uncertainty, all right? So for example, you know, if you are a franchise that sells properties like ERA, you know, and then suddenly there is a refugee crisis that go into, let's say, your country, and then a lot of your franchisees who are miles or quite near to where all the refugee camps are, their business will be affected, you know. So maybe your franchisee and then your business over there will be badly affected. This is just one example, okay? Now, we have talked about going international. I think just now, President Andrew Koh has talked about, you know, Senior Minister, you know, Sim Ann, urging Singaporeans to be just very quickly, you know, take off and then go international, right? Because Singapore is so small. We do have our constraints. But from my 31 years experience in franchise consulting, we say, look, always go back to basics. Always go back to basics. You know, before you run everywhere, you make sure your own home base, Singapore, okay? Your business is sound, and then you are sufficiently profitable, okay? And you must have manpower resources that are devoted to international operations. I think you have heard of stories about people who send, you know, Singapore managers to China or some other countries, and they are constantly wanting to come back to see their children and wanting to come back, you know, to do stuff, and then things will quickly go wrong, you know, overseas. You know, I remember one franchisor sent some of their staff to Outer Mongolia, you know, and then, ooh, these staff members cannot stand the weather, you know, are not willing to so-called suffer, you know, and therefore the support to the franchisee in Outer Mongolia is very bad, you know. So if you don't have the people ready for it, it's very tough, because people makes all the difference, all right? You must have the people that are willing to go overseas, to support franchisees, to make sure that they run the business the way you want them to run, because franchising is about standardization, right? And then when you go overseas, you must do your homework. I mean, we are all aware of also this scheme called the Market Readiness Assistance from ESG. Okay, tap on this, you know, actually go, you know, search out the areas, make sure your intellectual property is protected. Don't go there and have a shock. I'm sure all of us remember the story of Burger King. You know, when they went to Australia, they got a shock because someone already registered the name, and they have to operate. The franchisee there have to operate under Hungry Jacks, you know, and it took them millions of dollars to buy back, etc., etc. You know, so that the homework is very important, because you don't want to be shocked, all right? And there are many other things to consider, but one very important one is you must get the right partner. I think there'll be stories aplenty if you talk to people. Yeah, that for example, you know, you may go to a Middle Eastern country, you know, and then this person said, look, I have many shops. I already have the franchise for this brand, this brand, this brand, this brand. I want your brand also. And then very happily, you know, you receive their checks, and then later you found out that with all the franchise brands that they have got in their hands, they never really fulfilled the so-called development plan. You know, meaning if they're committed to open 20 within 5 years, they open 3 and they stop. And then they move on to another brand. And every brand is the same, you know. So the so-called, the opportunity cost is very high, meaning the country's potential or the region's potential is not fully exploited, because this partner turned out to be a brand collector, you know. Now, well, in view of the 20 minutes that I have and the cock up earlier on with the slides, if you have forgotten everything I say, you know, remember the letter C. Okay, it's a good way to remember. C will be about a country, the PEST. Okay, another C will be about a contract. For example, if you go to Australia, you'll be shocked that the ACCC has a lot of teeth. You know, you have to ensure that the franchisee has got cooling off period, and that the franchisee has consulted a third-party consultant. This and that, a lot of things. Okay, and then the communications. I will share a slide about communications in a minute. And then consumer spending power. If you look at the story of, let's say, McDonald's and Pizza Hut, when they first opened in India, they actually have to sell products that are much cheaper. For example, Pizza Hut sell small slices of pizza, just to entice the Indian consumers to come and try out the products. Why? It's also because of the spending power, all right? Another one is real estate, the corner. I mean, a concept like marché, for example, would find it a bit hard in Hong Kong to find a huge place for the concept to really, manifest its so-called pluses, right? Or another concept called iFly. If you go to Sentosa, you see this place called iFly, where you can learn to fly in an air chamber, right? So for them to find a corner or a real estate that can take in that concept is also not easy, all right? And then you have to consider about your competitors and copycats. They can be a bane, they can be a plus, depending on how you analyze and how you make use of the situation. Okay, and I will share a slide also on this. And then finally, of course, there are other C's to consider, but another one will be like the candidate's commitment. I shared just now about, some rich people who just want to collect brands, or for all let's say you are a childcare franchisor, and then someone comes to you, very rich, very well connected, etc., etc. But this person may be someone who dislikes kids, so then the passion will not come out, things like that. Okay, so let me move on to the next slide. Just now I shared about communication. Now, say this so-called advertisement, okay, if you were to do it in Singapore and Malaysia, it's fine, because people understand that, which one makes more noise? The bread, oh yeah, because bread talk, and then the coffee, because kopi tiam, but if you are not Hokkien, you don't get the joke, and therefore the communication, the kick, the essence of the message will be lost. All right. Another example will be this East Dawning. It's very interesting because East Dawning is owned by Yum China. I mean, Yum China is very big. They have KFC, they have Pizza Hut, they have Taco Bell. They also have this East Dawning. Now, in Mandarin, it sounds very poetic and very nice. But in Hokkien, meaning if you were to bring this concept to Fujian or to Taiwan or to Singapore, Malaysia, it sounds a bit vulgar because it's pronounced as Dong Fang Chi Bai, So it is, again, communication is very important. You cannot assume that whatever you have can be applied everywhere. Worse still, you may offend some because unwittingly, your branding people or your marketing agency didn't know the difference between dialects, all right? Just now I mentioned about copycats. In China, and of course in Iran and many other countries, I've seen copycats of McDonald's, all right? So, like I said, it can be a bane, it can be an advantage, depending on how you strategize and look at the situation and how you can turn things around, okay? Now, this slide is quite important because it tells you about the various ways you can look for franchisees. And I think one of the so-called audience actually sent also a text to us, say, hey, what are some of the ways to look for franchisees? I will start from the bottom, because using your own employee actually is the best, because this employee of yours, okay, assuming he's well-trained, all right, knows your franchise concept very well, knows the numbers, the rationale behind the numbers, why this franchise fee, why this tenure, why this royalty, etc., etc. And assuming that he is very dedicated to the company, the passion, will actually be manifested, and it will influence the franchisee to the prospective franchisee to a big extent. Then next up is brokers. Now, I must say that there are all sorts of brokers, but make sure the broker is not one who just throw warm bodies at you, okay, without qualifying the leads. All right, like I said just now, using the example of the kindergarten, you know, you don't want your broker to bring you all sorts of people who actually just are doing it for the money and don't like children or don't like education, right? Next up is Investors Forum. Investors Forum, I've done it with banks, I've done it with, chambers of commerce, and I've done it with also ESG before when it was called IE. So the Investor Forum is very good because you can actually plan. I've also done with the Restaurant Association in Singapore, right? You can actually plan properly for the different parties to meet, all right? So it's very focused. Then next up is franchise exhibitions and seminars. As all of you, most of you know, for example, my company alone, we go to 30 over shows every year, all right? Currently, many of the shows are going into the cyberspace, meaning it's a virtual seminar or virtual exhibition. We don't know when the actual face-to-face physical exhibitions will come back, but it will come back, trust me, right? And then next up is a point of purchase, meaning as a franchisor, if you have shops and whether schools or shops, any retail front, you can actually put, you know, a banner out, you know, so people know that you're looking for franchisee, or you can also urge your network of people through word of mouth to tell people that you're looking for franchisee. Then next up is, you know, your social media, your WhatsApp, your Twitter. You can use even LinkedIn, you know, to let people know you're looking for franchisees. And finally, the Asia Franchise and Business Opportunities magazine is 27 years old, launched by TDB, then later called IE, now called ESG. It is the only English Chinese franchise magazine in the world. So it has also proven to be a very useful tool, all right? But my recommendation to all my clients has been very constant, which is use as many platforms as possible. Don't rely on one, okay? Now, earlier on, I said that there are many exhibitions and conferences, like this one by the Taiwan government. They are doing online franchise business day, which is matchmaking, and then the one in America, okay, they are also doing online. All right, and then make use of technology. You know, your portal can have chatbots for prospective franchisees to ask you questions, and then you can talk to them. And finally, arrange a discovery day for all the, you know, for the prospective franchisees to come, you know, and visit you. Of course, remembering all the safe distancing and all, until, you know, until this thing is over, we have to bear in mind all the measures. So the last 2-3 slides, I think the key is adaptation. Okay, we must adapt to the ever-changing, mostly uncontrollable, especially, you know, when it's virus, and frequently incomprehensible environment. All right, give you an example. McDonald's, how they adapt. They go to Hong Kong, they realize that Hong Kongers like to have, you know, macaroni for breakfast. So they do have a dish which is macaroni, you know, with the egg and a piece of beef patty, right? Or it can be a pork patty. Then in Tokyo, they know that the ebi burger is very popular because the shrimps, so is a hot selling item. Then in Philippines, they have spaghetti. And then in Thai, they have the really nice and sweet corn pie because of the sweet tooth that the Thais have, right? Here are 2 more very good examples. One of my clients buying Edison, they are actually stationery and leather products, gifts kind of concept. During the this lockdown period or semi-lockdown period or CB period, they actually came up with a product which is a very nice leather holder for hand sanitizer. And this is a very, very appropriate gift, you know, and it's a very exquisite gift, you know. So quick thinking on their part. And IKEA also. IKEA during this CD period, and in fact all over the world, they actually shared their meatballs recipe. And then they actually write the recipe down in a manner that reflects IKEA's virtues, which is, you can put things together in a very simple manner, because IKEA is very good in giving instructions on how to put things together. So again, it reinforces their branding and their standing amongst current and future customers. So these are all little examples to tell you that, hey, look, you have to consider all these things. Don't let this COVID-19 paralyze you, and don't let it stop you from thinking of new ideas, thinking of improvements, and how to be prepared when this thing is over. All right. Another example is Australia 7-Eleven. They actually, bought into Tipo, which is a last mile delivery kind of a business, and they start delivering, milk, bread and all to their customers. So who says that 7-Eleven is someplace that you go and they don't deliver? They are into it because they see the opportunity, Yeah. So, this slide is for all the franchisors out there. It would be very interesting if you can have, the mindset of a sociologist, knowing, what the society is becoming like, you are a bit of a psychologist, okay, understanding the needs and wants of people. You are very diplomatic in dealing with suppliers, franchisees, government people, etc., etc. You know all the clauses well in your contract, because when people ask you why this, why that, you are able to answer the obligations and, all the necessary clauses. A bit of a fortune teller, because actually it's a bit of common sense. When you look at what's happening, you will know that, oh, in future, for example, for one of our panelists later, he's in the Chinese restaurant business. So very clearly in the future is, you can't really get 10 people to sit down in one table already. So a bit of fortune telling is say, okay, maybe 5 people with distance, safe distancing. Maybe even your menu, has to be auto, and maybe even the amount of time, whether it's from the government or not, for 5 people to sit down for lunch may be restricted to just 1 hour. We don't know, but a bit of fortune telling will be useful so that you can plan now, so that you can talk to your master chef to come up with new menus, and talk to your various people about new sitting arrangements, etc., etc. And finally, of course, you need to be a business person, because like I said right at the beginning, your business has to be successful for you to clone yourself. If you are failing, your franchisees will lose confidence in you. You must know where the profit is going to come from. You must know how to come up with new products, how to continuing in becoming better, so that your franchisees and future franchisees all feel that they have signed up with the right brand, right? Okay, so I am done with my 20 minutes. I'm now going to invite our 2 distinguished panelists, Andrew Tjioe from Tung Lok and Ernie Koh from Koda, to answer some of the questions. I will go into the first question, which is how does recovery look like in Singapore after the circuit breaker? Maybe I'll pass the mic to Andrew, and then the second question, Ernie will take on. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. On this question of recovery, I personally think that it will be a slow recovery, and it's not going to be a V-shaped type, and rather it will be a long U. And many people think that it will last for a while, at least 12 months. So with this business failures and pay cut, unemployment that is happening, it will definitely weaken our spending power. So F&B, I can only speak for F&B business because this is mine. It is what we have been doing in the last 35 years. So for F&B, we all know that we can only do online delivery and takeaway during these circuit breakers, and some are actually doing quite well. So for the case of Tung Lok Group, we were not very strong in online delivery before, but surprisingly, during circuit breaker, our online delivery and takeaway business actually increased 300%. And I would say I see opportunity of growth in this area. So I think long after the COVID-19, this online delivery and takeaway business will stay. And we will, of course, we want to strengthen on this area. And another reason of the slow recovery, we all know that the international traveler will not come back so soon, so it will take a while. And Singapore depends on countries around us, and also China, Europe, US, even Australia or New Zealand. So will the tourists or travelers from these countries come back to Singapore soon? So that is remain a question. So we are not safe until every country is safe. So I think I would say it is a blessing to us that many of our, or actually most of our restaurants overseas are actually franchised. So we were not so exposed financially. Yeah, but when your franchisee also facing the same issue as you, the problem is that you may not receive your royalty, you see. So what we have been hearing from our franchisee overseas is that, oh, can you waive this franchise fee for a few months or even up to a year, So, well, I think it is quite difficult to manage such a situation, because if you don't help them out, then I think it will be very difficult to move forward. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that answered the question. Albert.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. We now move on to Ernie. Ernie, can you take on the second question, which is the economic outlook in the global perspective?
If I have a crystal ball in front of me, I'll be a very rich person by now. So I got to have a disclaimer before what I say. This is a personal assessment. I think in a pandemic situation like this, none of us in this generation have gone through, unless you are, in a Spanish flu era or during one of the World War, you may have experienced one situation like this. But the world has gotten smaller today, and whatever happens globally, I think affects us one way or another. So my personal thought is, from post-COVID, we may go into a beginning of a global recession. So the global recession, how long will it last is anybody's guess. 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. I think, on a short end is 12 months. On a longer is 24 months. So as a SME, small business trying to license and franchise overseas, the question is, first, you're fighting a war within your own business. That means you have to build up your war chest. Specifically, your balance sheet got to be very strong. And the question is, how are you able to sustain your current business and still yet grow your global business, but still the global business is in a global recession? There are opportunities, I'll go into that. There are opportunities of that. So building a war chest is basically building a lot of relationships. For us, we went to our bank, even though we don't need our money right now. We talked to them, they extended us some credit. So we are building up this war chest. We literally draw down on the loan in case they pull out the line again. We talk to our customers and our international customers. By the way, Koda is a manufacturer. We own also commune retail shops, which with about 100 in total in the region, particularly in China. So we talk to our customers to make sure that orders are not cancelled. Our customers are B2B. They delayed. The demand has dropped. So it's a time of building relationship, because everybody in the, as Andrew says, everybody in the value chain is affected. You're affected. Your partners are affected. Franchisees. So you have to go to them and work out a deal with them. I mean, before we have this, we talk about forced merger situation and all. I think forced merger is a very ugly thing. It's a contractual obligation and all. But before we go to forced merger or go into any contractual obligation, we need to work things out as in a relationship. Rather than filing for divorce, I'm saying, if you are in a marriage situation. So you go along your upstream, you build relationship, your downstream, your bank, your peripheral, try to maintain a positive attitude. You go to a bank and say, I'll die, they'll definitely not lend you money, And business opportunities, you have to see as a global context, what will happen, especially in the US-China relationship. I think things are going regional. Regionalization of businesses become more important. Secondly is with this pandemic, the government will have to take several precautionary movements with respect to their stockpile. Because of they get stuck in the situation of a face mask, the Taiwan issue and all, and self-sustenance. So I'm sure that there are businesses opportunity there. Before even this pandemic, I was looking at B2B franchise. If you own a license, if you have a proprietary, you can own it and you license it out or you franchise it out. For instance, I like vegetable farming and all. And if I start farming, rooftop farming, it's impossible to garner all the rooftops of Singapore. But if you're able to create a proprietary and you go and franchise it out, maybe Bedok, 5 blocks owned by a franchisee, and then on top of that, you talk to the government, and then you got your debt, you got 5 blocks of thing, and one franchisee comes and you supply the seedlings and things like this to them. There is a business. So think of how are you going to take opportunity of a situation right now to be able to create new businesses, because new businesses is definitely there one. Government now very keen already. How can I have my eggs, my fish, my vegetables, my basic necessities, my PPE equipment, all got to be at least partially self-sustenance. And this, if you garner proprietary, you can. Having said that, if you don't have that, other countries have. Maybe you can be a master franchisor or a master franchisee. Sorry. Or a local individual franchisee for that license in Singapore. So the light at the end of the tunnel, I should say, we have to be a bit more positive on that, Albert. Thanks.
I agree. Very interesting. I'll be your first franchisee for the vegetables, right? Okay, without further ado, let me move on to the next slide. This has been shared by Andrew earlier about the recovery, and this is just a slide, okay, from the IMF about the world growth in GDP per capita. So you can see very clearly that during the financial crisis in 2009 and then now 2020, the pandemic, the world capital GDP will really shrink, And then the share of countries with negative per capita will shoot up conversely. Quite commonsensical, but we all hope for the best. Okay, the next 2 questions. One will be, has franchising been one of your key business development growth strategies? And will you continue to use franchising as an expansion and growth strategy, and why, right? And I think both our panelists, you can add, and then I will also give my 2 cents worth on this, and then followed by learning from COVID, what are the ways to strengthen your franchise systems? Again, please share liberally. I will also give my 2 cents worth after your sharing. Maybe we'll start with Andrew.
Yeah, okay. The answer is definitely yes, because as I mentioned just now, we are quite blessed, that our business overseas are mainly franchised or licensed, so that there was almost no capex on our part. While the income is much lesser than if you were to run the business yourself. But to me, that is a very safe business. You're earning passive income without having to really take care of the business. If you have a very good franchisee, your franchisee should take care of your business. So at the moment, we have 3 franchisees. Okay, first of all, the brands. I don't know how many of you have heard of Dancing Crab. So Dancing Crab has got 3 outlets in Japan. That is in Tokyo, Osaka, and Fukuoka. So these are all run by the same franchisee. And the same franchisee also run a Dancing Crab in Taipei with a joint venture partner who is also our friend. So, for me, I'm not in a hurry to build my franchise business because, everybody would agree that your partner is very important. The way you choose your franchisee is very, very important. And you don't want to be caught in the situation whereby they don't pay you or they mess up your brand, and then they anyhow put in their own idea, their own things into your franchise model until nobody can recognize it. Yeah, so we are quite fortunate that our franchisee has been an old hand in F&B, and I would say all the outlets in Japan are doing well. The one in Taipei is still developing and still quite new, and then COVID-19 come, so it will take a while to recover. So we also franchise our fine dining concept like Thong Lok Signatures, Thong Lok Hin in ASEAN. So we have a Thong Lok Hin in Hanoi and a Thong Lok Signatures in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh. And both outlets are big and require huge investment. If I were to put the same restaurant in Singapore, I think the investment would be at least 3 to 4 million. Yeah. So our partners are very, they're very daring. So they really put in a lot of money to put up the restaurants. And of course, unfortunately, they are also hit by COVID-19. So hopefully this situation will improve. I think we read in the news that Cambodia do not have any more confirmed cases for the past 3 or 4 days. So they actually only have two patients left. So I think they're in good shape. So as Vietnam also has started to open up their economy. So I believe these 2 countries will be one of the few that get out of the gate, and they are actually doing better than Singapore. And we are still waiting here, but I think Vietnam already opened up. So, okay, just to emphasize, the way to go, if you have a successful business model, and if it is a profitable model, it is definitely better to franchise. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Ernie, anything to share?
Okay, commune business is predominantly franchise, except for the shops in Singapore. It's not a true franchise, it's called a dealership model because of the legalities of China laws. So we are heavily weighted in China. So now China is a bit ahead of a curve with the recovery. You can see things are coming back, but still have issues now. So as a franchisor, as Andrew say, it's not painful for you when the market hits, but it's very painful for them. So they'll come back to you, and you have to be champion lah. You know, you got to start negotiating. You got to start being a bit more forgiving in terms of fees and things like this. But also maybe an opportunity, because sometimes if your franchisor is very good, and if you have a situation that they are in a very tight cash situation, you may do some M&A with them and become their partner moving forward. And then you own part of it, and then you can grow it from there. Having said that, if you're a franchisee, on the flip side, is also you got to be careful. You know, if your master franchisor is a bit too strong, they can impose a lot of things. But moving into developing new franchise is a little bit challenging because travel restriction. How are you going to bring your software over? How are you going to send your guys over to be the manager or to set up the store and to make sure everything is prim and proper? How are they going to come to you and download the software to you? It's not easy, especially in F&B. How can you digitize on taste? You can't digitize on taste. So it's not easy moving forward, but in your own perspective of business, you have to see what can be done. And I think one very good way to help our franchisee is digitization. A lot of our government initiative is into digitization, and a lot of money will be put into it. We are talking, FLA and we are talking to the government on a few initiatives. One of it is, as a franchisor in Singapore and franchisee overseas, we are asking our government to consider our franchisee as our partner. So our funding, if we were to bring people in and all, it can be funded by the government of Singapore. As Andrew said, you got the benefit, but you do not have the cost involved in it. On the other hand, if your franchisee does very well, you also do very well in it, your royalties or your product sold. So we are trying to tell the government, hey, those are our partners also. That's one. The other one is educating our internally franchisor through to convert your employee into foreign managers in a way that they go overseas to take care of your franchise. So the training program, things like this, we are trying to ask the government to see franchise and licensing as one of the big growth avenue when you go international. In fact, I see an SBF SME committee for internationalization. I shared. There's this program coming up, Go Business, Go Asia Business, which they'll start their offices in Vietnam and Indonesia. I think Myanmar will be the country. And one of the initiatives I'm pushing very hard is franchising as a platform for these countries. Not only as a franchisor, but to be a franchisee of the country's brand in both ways. So a lot of things are in the pipeline through FLA, and a lot of things that we are able to push. As I say, the cost involved is minimum. The test market is there, and if it's successful, you can do certain M&A with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. You know, it's very clear, although franchising is not a perfect system, but just judging by the number of countries that want to join the World Franchise Council every year, you know, and judging by the amount of support many governments other than Singapore, you know, actually supporting enterprises in their own country to expand via franchising, is very clear that franchising is still a very popular so-called model of doing business. Yeah, I think we are especially blessed in Singapore because the Singapore government is very pro-business, and they have a lot of subsidies and grants for us to make use of, if you meet the criteria. Yeah, and I think I just want to add that, of course, Singapore branding being very good with a very honest government, and we Singaporeans being quite hardworking and trustworthy. Singapore brands have still many more years, to take advantage of this situation. And finally, of course, many of you are aware that there can be a lot of very good spin-offs, from a strong network. If you look at, for example, 7-Eleven, they don't just become a retailer. They can even, accept laundry. They can accept, deliveries from courier companies. They can even collect fines for the government. They can even be a, emergency center for emergency goods during earthquakes and what have you. So there are a lot of spin-offs, and you can actually find all sorts of integration opportunities. Yeah. So I won't belabor on this point. I think the next question before other questions come in will be, learning from COVID-19, what are the ways to strengthen your franchise systems? All right, maybe I will reverse the thing. I will share a slide first, and then I will invite our panelists to, add, subtract, modify whatever I've said, okay? So, for example, I just use 2 examples, all right? Now that consumers seek out safe, trustworthy experiences, okay? Domino's, for example, they came up with the pizza pedestal so that drivers don't have to put, their customers' orders on the ground, okay? They just came up with a simple cardboard feature that sounds like a basic innovation, but it goes a long way easing consumers' mind regarding hygiene. Okay, so people appreciate knowing that their pizza isn't touching a surface that hasn't been cleaned. Okay, so this can become a new operating procedure or an add-on to their procedures, in view of what's happening because of COVID-19 and because people are paranoid about hygiene. Another example, Chick-fil-A is very profitable. In fact, they say that they are more profitable than McDonald's. It's a chicken franchise in in America, growing by leaps and bounds. So they too, they actually make sure that all their workers get face coverings. They have installed more hand washing stations. They even come up with drive-through lanes. Now they are talking not only about cars, even big trucks. They say, even these truck drivers, there are so many in America, certain locations, certain highways, when they have Chick-fil-A, they might even have a drive-through for trucks. So these are all opportunities which they have thought of, but this will go into their new SOP. These are just some examples, all right? So maybe Andrew or Ernie, if you have anything to add concerning this.
I'm okay. I think Ernie, go ahead.
Just one comment. I spoke to Dixon of Manhattan Fish Market during the COVID time. He has supply chain problem to his franchisee. Where to get his designated olive oil, the brand that he wants and all. So maybe things like this, we will have to help our franchisee and to strengthen it, to see alternate supply chain. That's one. Maybe strengthening certain SOP, redefining, as Albert sometimes said to me before, force merger is one clause that last resort you may have to execute the last resort. So you may have to take this clause into quite serious consideration for future, because whenever I sign a contract and all, it's force merger, it's just a normal thing inside the clause and never see of it. Until this situation, then everybody start going into it. So it is refining your SOP and also your contract is something that we need to look into. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, allow me to maybe jump in. We have received some questions from the attendees. So it will be directed to Albert, Ernie, as well as Andrew. So maybe let me read out. Okay, this question is from James from Successes Consulting. The question is, post-COVID, what can we do to help overseas franchisees or partners handle the impact on their business of our brands?
This is not an easy question, because actually all of us also are affected, and all of us sometimes are weakened as a result of this. So how can a weak help a weak? The only way is to see whether we can combine and help each other. 团结就是力量. You can't help both cannot help both. Maybe combine, you can help each other, right? It's like somebody drowning and you hardly can able to swim. You jump in and then you manage to stay afloat. Just 2% manage to stay afloat till the third help comes. So that, I think, that's my 6 cents to it.
I think, as I shared earlier, most franchisee would expect a discount or maybe a few months holiday for the royalty payment. So that is to be expected. But as what Ernie said, Singapore also suffered. Our business also get a beating during this COVID-19. So it is during this time that we all face the same problem. We are on the same boat, no matter where you are, whether you're in Singapore or in an ASEAN country. So I suppose franchisor and franchisee can understand each other during this period. So hopefully, even if they ask for some help, they should also, your franchisee would also consider your situation, because we are not better off than them.
I think, let me add to that, Andrew. I think sometimes we have to communicate to our partners. I call them partners, my customers, my franchisee. The situation we are in also. Because they say, hey, franchisor always got money one. Franchisor always very strong one. So we need to communicate with them and say, hey, we are also in the same situation. Our cash is a bit also a situation. So then they will understand. If not, they'll come back to you for everything.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe I will go back to this slide. Okay, so you can see, some of the points that are put up, which is, I input Ernie's and Andrew's points inside. So one will be the financial, because everybody is going through this, loss of revenue, stage of their business. So the financial part, you can either defer, the fees that they owe you, or waive the fees if you are generous. But be careful, because lawyers will tell you that you better make sure that they know that you are not waiving off your rights. You are just for this particular period, willing to help them through some deferment or some discount. Another support you can give them is on the operational side. I think Ernie talked about supply chain, and then I think Andrew talked about HR related things, because, a lot of your franchisees may have to, ask their franchisees to, be furloughed, and then later when things get better, how to rehire back. So these may be things they have never done before. So you may, your HR person or you yourself may want to impart some of the knowledge on how to handle things like that. And with the landlords, how to negotiate. And then with government agencies, how to ensure that, operationally, they are not going against the guidelines given by the government agencies. Then same with marketing and sales, how do they go in the social media and e-commerce, how you can even with your network through economies of scale, help them get a better price, through a e-commerce vendor or things like that. And then I think Ernie earlier on mentioned about the force majeure. So the franchise agreement obligations, some franchisees are very worried. They say, goodness me, I'm not meeting the sales target, or I'm, according to the contract, if I don't pay, if I owe more than 3 months, my franchisor can impose interest charges, or they can actually terminate me because this is a major clause that I cannot, so-called not follow. And so these are all the things that we can, sort of offer, in whatever way we can to assure our franchisees that, they are not alone. After all, franchising, according to Ray Kroc, say you are in business by your, for yourself, but not by yourself, because you have a whole chain of people behind you, giving you the strength, sharing knowledge with you. Yeah. Any other things to add here?
Okay, we have question from Angel Chong from Hersing Culinary. Angel, are you with us?
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
Angel. Yeah, we received your question. Would you like to read out your question to the panelists and speaker?
All right. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon to the panelists.
Hi.
So I want to know about the future trends of franchise for the post-COVID-19. So what should we do, and what our next step?
Ernie, anyone have to, okay. Andrew or Ernie, you all want to touch on this point?
Yeah, I think that is quite a similar question than the previous one, I think. As what, maybe Albert?
Yes.
Yeah, I think your previous slide is very helpful.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Andrew is talking about the trends, right? So maybe if you allow me, I will just share some slides on what I think could be the trends. But I think what is very important at this juncture to Angel is that, franchising, like any other business, okay, when you talk about trends, okay, one trend that is happening in, let's say, a particular country doesn't mean the same trend will happen in another country. A very absurd but true example will be bak kut teh. Bak kut teh may be a trend, let's say, in Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, but it will not be a trend in the Middle East, right? So those are what I call commonsensical things. But if you were to say about the COVID one, then we look at the current situation. The current situation is people are very conscious about, hygiene. So let me try to go back to my screen. Oh my goodness.
So does people feel more at ease if they see that we sanitize our products each time when they dine in, or we use the disposable crockery, and we scan, we trace, and we put the table further apart? Would it help to for the customer to come back to dine in with us, to be more at ease?
Yes.
Okay, can I say something about that?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. I believe this is going to become a new normal. In the case of a restaurant like ours, we can see that this safe distancing and then 分餐, individual serving of food will be here to stay for a long time. And, actually, the communal style dining came back. And this individual serving has been around in Singapore for many, many years. And suddenly people got tired of it and think that, oh, I prefer communal dining because we like to share with family, with friends. So now with the COVID-19 situation, we probably have to go back to individual serving. But if you still want to serve your dishes communal style, you can still do it, but make sure that you include a serving spoon or a serving chopstick.
Okay.
Yeah. Thomas, can you see my screen? Andrew, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see. Yes.
Yeah,
can you see the PowerPoint?
Home dining.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, according to UBS, just this report was out just yesterday. they did a survey in Australia, and they say that, you know, the in-home dining trend is now picking up, because now a lot of restaurants, they realize that people actually don't mind, you know, if you send them all this stuff, you give them some steps, they just put onto the oven or put onto a frying pan, and then they can do it on their own. So I think, you know, even restaurant franchises, it doesn't mean you cannot do that too. You know, I think this is a trend that whether it will take off in Singapore or not, I can't tell. I can't read into the crystal ball, but certainly we can consider, you know, we can start thinking about it. Yeah?
So we need to implement like packaging to our concept, so that we also should put on a next step, maybe more on frozen products that can go back to reheat, so they can share with the family.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I think
Actually,
a lot of things. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I agree with you. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Let me share. Last week I was at Prego. I went to buy things. It's interesting. I bought a porterhouse for 2 person. Everything is raw. You bring home, they teach you step by step to cook it in 15 minutes. And the thing comes out to be like very nice. You know, on the other hand, 2 weeks ago, I ordered online a steak cooked, come in. By the time it comes in, it's not too hot anymore, and you know, it's a bit dry. So certain menu can be put together quite easily, and step by step. They give you the sauce, the lemon sauce and the steak sauce and all, which is amazing. And for dinner for two for $70, it's amazing. So things like this is quite innovative. On the other hand, is Grand Hyatt is offering $10 meal, $10 for a rendang, $10 for a Western meal and all. I haven't tried it, but it's interesting also. That's the next one I'm going to try. So it gives you a situation that you are able to test run certain things as F&B. I always feel that when you tapao back, you should be cheaper than when you dine in a restaurant. Because F&B but when they factor in your rental into your tapao bag, it becomes too expensive because you still got to pay the delivery guy. But on the other hand, if I don't dine in, your overhead is not used by me. So why must I be paying your overhead when I dine in? So if the concept of you may have is changed, where your dining area becomes smaller and your takeout become a bigger part of a business, and then if you are able to embrace that taking out is charging less than your dining in, people may end up embracing this a lot, and then your overhead of rental may be dropped. I don't know whether I'm opening a can of worms to the F&B, but this is my analogy to it.
Well, I just want to share with you, all the audience. I mean, we do have this platform, e-commerce platform called homefiesta.tonglok.com. Okay, so you may want to have a look at it. So this platform has been around for almost 3 years, but it was quite inactive until COVID-19, you know, and suddenly it surged. The demand for such frozen product surged. Angel mentioned about frozen food, right?
Yes.
So yeah, so you may want to have a look at this Home Fiesta at tonglok.com, and we don't call it RTE, or ready to eat. We call it heat and serve. Only 2-step, a click and a 2-step, and you can have a good food. So you just heat, open up the plastic bag, serve. That's it. And I think this will be the way to go.
So do you sell your similar products, right? What you sell in the restaurant, you also sell at the frozen section, so people, they cannot compare, or they can compare the food quality.
Oh, exactly. So the same product you can find in our restaurant. So now we put this box freezer in all our restaurants that remain open during COVID. During the circuit breaker. And surprisingly, many people actually buy while they are in the restaurant.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other question, Angel?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have all the answer then. Thanks for sharing with Andrew, and thanks for sharing with the the boss, and Mr. Albert Kong. I'm good. Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
every other day, I always go to your tuk lady, you know.
Oh, okay. I
Yesterday,
deeply
my lunch
appreciate
was,
that.
yesterday, my lunch was green curry rice.
Oh, it is a good choice. We make that fresh every day.
Yeah. Nice.
We'll support you for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, you know, like the trends also, again, taking into consideration the mindset of the consumer, you know, you may want to have, if it is appropriate, you may want to consider also having more measures like putting up this type of screens to assure, depending on your business, of course, to assure your customers that, you know, they are very safe interacting with you, right? Okay, so I will stop here because this slide is actually answering this person asking about the scenario in the Philippines, right? Maybe I hand over to Tricia first. Tricia?
Maybe we would like to address one last question from the attendees. Actually, we have a lot of questions from the attendees, but I think maybe let's, because of time, right? We are limited of time, so let's just address one last question. It's from Jeffrey. Jeffrey, are you there? Jeffrey from JN Capital and Growth Advisory.
I'm here, but I didn't have any questions.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the one who had the question.
Oh, okay. It's okay. Maybe let me read out the question. Where and what are the best franchise opportunities right now? I think maybe this person is also referring to which country. So maybe from your experience and your industry knowledge these days, then maybe you can give us a sharing on which country do you think is the most ready for franchising activities now?
Who will answer that?
Maybe
either of you.
Oh, okay. Personally, I would say ASEAN country. See, we don't have to go too far away. You know, actually, ASEAN is, you know, with the 600 million people, right? So that is a market very big enough for any of our business. And at the moment, we operate in Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and very soon we'll be in the Philippines. So these are all ASEAN countries. So I personally think that our future development will be more in ASEAN. Is China still very good? Yes and no. You know, we set up our very first restaurant in China in 2004, but after so many years, you know, we made our money, but eventually you give back all your profit. You know, so I would say we are not very successful in China. China market is can be quite tricky. While it is a very big market, there are plenty of opportunity, but at the same time there are also many, we call it 陷阱. There are many traps. It's not easy to make money, even if you when you're profitable, and most likely you will expand your business, and eventually you will lose out. And that is what happened to us. When we made money, we expand, we create more outlets, eventually we lose out. So for F&B, unfortunately, there is nothing much we can teach the Chinese, to be honest. They're very, very good. They're very strong in F&B. And I would say I learn more from them than they learn from us now. Perhaps in 2004, we still have a lot of new things for them. But today, there is nothing we can contribute. Yeah. So in terms of business opportunity, I think ASEAN country is a big enough market for us. Thank you.
For me, I think right on the Singapore brand. Singapore brand in ASEAN is still considered as a higher value. In China, we are still growing in China, but still riding on Singapore brand. Having said that, the internal brand is catching up. China is when you're good, there are many people that is like right beside you, not behind you, beside you. So got to be mindful on that. But my closing remark is this now. I think all of us in the same boat, and all of us in deep down has got this fear. All of us is riding on new uncharted territory. But everybody, if we will take a brighter side of life, be a bit more optimistic and drive and take our business in a different perspective, then if your business, of course, is some in a quadrant that you think in the next 3 to 5 years there's no way out, perhaps you need to go and relook into your a new business. But if you think that is a short term, then there's more perspective moving forward. Ride it out, be a bit more positive to it. Everybody is in the same boat, and just ride out the wave. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew and Ernie. This slide is meant for Simply Rap's director, but I will skip it now because I think it's specific to him. I also have very simple and quick closing remarks. Okay, so going forward, it's incumbent on all franchisors to protect and grow the brand. Okay, COVID or no COVID. Like I said, franchisees join you because other than being able to learn from you and make money, is also because you have a good brand, right? And in order to achieve expansion, okay, you must drive awareness, okay, and don't just capture demand, but also generate demand. Whether it's through LinkedIn, Facebook, word of mouth, whatever, send out positive messages. Let people know that you are a brand that care, that is versatile, that can, adapt to the circumstance. So, your current franchisees will also become more loyal to you. And then consumers are likely to come out of the pandemic with a heightened sense of hygiene. So please take care of hygiene, all right? And then it's important for businesses to build trust with their consumers, all right? You must think about all the safety measures, okay? And then because consumers know that, if they're not taken care of, you are probably a brand that should not get their so-called support, all right? So to survive and even thrive in this new normal, businesses need to be armed with the right data, insights, and ability to test and scale new products fast, okay? So this pandemic has accelerated this evolution. Okay, in the years to come, the franchise losers and winners will be determined in large part by the decisions they make today. Okay, the time is now to chart your destiny. Okay, so I will stop here. I will pass to Tricia to see what else she wants to share. Thank you.
Tricia, you should unmute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, Albert, Ernie, and Andrew for sharing your valuable insights with our participants today. I'd like to thank all the participants for hanging in with us, although we are running over time. But please allow me the next 2 minutes for a short announcement. So we hope that the session has been meaningful for you and to help your businesses to continue in this crisis period. FLA, supported by Enterprise Singapore, developed the Franchise Competency Framework and Diagnostic Assessment Tool. It was launched officially last year. So far, more than 75 brands have benefited from the assessment. We have shared the online version of the assessment with many of you this morning. It takes less than 10 minutes to complete. FLA, as an association, we hope to support all the Singapore enterprises to identify your gaps in your franchise systems so that we can elevate the industry's overall competency level and help all the brands to be prepared for the recovery stage. Global trade and businesses will take on many different forms post-COVID-19. FLA has planned a 2-part online roundtable discussion focusing on franchise preparation for post-COVID-19. The first session on anticipating the next steps focuses on lasting impacts of COVID-19 and how to prepare forward. The second session, adapting to a new world of franchising, focuses on reframing your franchise system for success. We plan to arrange for cross-industry representation in each of the roundtable discussion sessions to facilitate sharing of ideas and hopefully spark collaboration. We hope to have you join us. The registration deadline for the first session ends tomorrow. Last but not least, franchisees facing issues, feel free to reach out to FLA for any further support. And we wish everyone the best, and please help us. We'll be sending out 3 poll questions for feedback. Hope you will help us with it so that we can improve for our further session. Thank you so much and goodbye.